Hey everybody, Ted Forbes here. Welcome back to yet another day of the Art of Photography vlogs. This is a little experiment that I'm trying out for this week, and I've recorded basically a show every day. We are on day 6 now. I can't believe it. It's been wild. Couple things, I don't want to get too meta on you here, but just to reflect, what I particularly enjoyed about the vlog is, at least with a bunch of people who follow the show on YouTube, which is really the only place I'm putting this, just because I don't want to inundate iTunes users with downloading massive amounts of video to their iPod without warning. But it's been particularly interesting for me with some of the discussions I've had with people, just either via comments or via email, or I've even had a couple video responses, which is really cool. And keep it up, guys. It's really fun. I mean, for me, if you've read some of the posts that I've made about this in the past, that you can see over at the website, which is theartofphotography.tv. The thing that is important to me is the community first. Photography is really interesting to me. Obviously, it's a huge passion of mine. I've made 100 or so videos on this, and I love sharing. And I love having these discussions, because when you interface with people and when you have these types of conversations, although these are maybe not real conversations because they're online, however, what's exciting to me is it makes me get better as a photographer when you bounce ideas off of people, or you get feedback from something, or you haven't explained something correctly, or sometimes you get it right and you do explain something correctly, and then it influences my own work as I think about it later. So all this to say, if you guys, I know making videos, turning on the camera and throwing yourself on YouTube isn't for everyone, but if you're remotely interested, I mean, my gosh, why wouldn't you do it? It's so easy, and it's just, I think the gain that I get from it really is, relationships with people. That being said, one of those discussions has, inspired what I want to talk about right now. I've done some stuff with cameras and stuff. My friend Edmond, who lives in Brooklyn, we met formally. We've tweeted back and forth and emailed, probably over at least the last year. And he came to the Art of Photography meetup that we did in New York City. And that was a great group of guys, and we really had a wonderful time. Edmond kind of bogarted, and they found the cool bar to take me to, and it was a lot of fun, and we had some great discussion about photography, just various things. And I guess what amazes me is, sometimes when you meet people in person, you have discussions, and then you learn things from them, and I think that's really cool. Anyway, all this to say is Edmond left me a video response. I believe there's actually 2 of them, and the one I'm talking about, I think, is day 2 of the vlog, and whatever it is, I will put a link. Let's see, I'm going to look in the thing here, so you can click on it, and you might want to take a minute, pause this video, and click on it, and I'll make sure it opens in a new window, and you can see Edmond's response. And Edmond brought up a very good point, which I want to elaborate on a little bit. See, these video responses get the dialogue going. It's kind of cool. But Edmond was talking about some of the things that he's done to kind of reflect on his own work over the years. And here's the deal. I could have a lot more views, I think, if I did camera reviews, and I'm not interested in that. I'm not passionate about that. I love cameras. I love gear just like everybody else. They're fun to fidget with, but it's weird because, as I get a little bit older, I think that has something to do with it. But what I'm really interested in is photography as an art form and getting better, and really trying to be, it's gonna sound like the Army here, be the best you can be. And that really is important. And one of the points that Edmond was making, there were 2 that he made in the video actually. The first being keeping contact sheets, and the second one, making printing your work, and either keeping them in some kind of folio, or at least an envelope or a stack or something grouped, or hanging them up on your wall, getting them framed, doing that. And I've done a number of podcasts over the last year. Sorry, I've got cats, and either that or somebody's after me, one of the 2. I've been invited to happy hour, so I'm dedicated to doing the vlog, so I'm going to do it before I leave for happy hour. Anyway, Edmund was saying, keeping actual prints of your work is really important, and then also contact sheets. Okay, now having said that, the reason he was saying this, and this is the key, because I think I have the same feeling about my own work sometimes. Sometimes, and this varies person to person, you may be really good at this, I am not. I have to work really hard at this. I'm not a good judge of my own work a lot of times, and I will throw stuff on Flickr, I'll put it on my website, I'll make prints, and then sometimes I realize later, and I've noticed this with myself because I keep all my contact sheets, my negatives and such, I'll pull them out when I'm doing printing sometimes because I'm looking for another image, and then I'll find 4 on that roll that I didn't think were very good at the time that are actually better than the one I was looking for. all that to say is sometimes you need to let your own work breathe a little bit, and you learn from that. And the key here is to do this and reflect on it. And it could be a couple months later, it could be a year later, it could be a couple years later sometimes. But this is so important to what you're trying to do as a photographer. If you only shoot digital, it's okay. You don't have the benefit of contact sheets unless you print them. But even keeping galleries of images in Lightroom or Aperture and going back into those after a period of time has passed and looking back at your own work and reflecting it. See, here's the deal. As photographers, and I'm assuming if you made it this far into the video, you're serious about becoming a better photographer, and you work very hard at that. I do. And I'm going to assume that you do too. And you're going to learn things along the way. So let's say you took a series of images of whatever it is, okay? You took them, maybe a year goes by, and you learned some new techniques, you've learned some new philosophies, you've started to think about your work in a different way, you've started to approach things differently. And let's say you go back and revisit those images. A couple things can happen. One, you're like, oh, these are horrible. Another thing, you could look back and say, you know what? That was really interesting, what I was trying to do in this shot here. Why didn't I expand on that? And sometimes we don't see those things at the time. And so I think Edmond was right in letting that work breathe and kind of living with it for a little while and learning how to just kind of see it over time. It's really hard. If I'm on a deadline and I need images, I'll admit, because I'm just not particularly a good judge of my own work sometimes, particularly if it's something I just shot, okay? In fact, really I will say it's for something that I've photographed recently. I almost always get a second opinion and bounce it off of somebody. I think that's really important, to not be too controlling about your work or too hard and vain about it, to let somebody else give their opinion on it. And I think the main reason for that is this. Sometimes there's an emotional element of doing a photo shoot that you get caught up in as a photographer. You were there, you knew the people you were photographing perhaps, or maybe it was a model or somebody you didn't know previously, but you had some kind of back and forth relationship on that shoot. Something may happen that influenced it. Anyway, you have all the behind the scenes stuff, and sometimes I get very emotional. Make it sound like I don't go emo or anything, but I have a certain feeling like when something went really well. Let's put it this way: it could have been a great photo shoot, and just because it was a lot of fun, and my images may have been kind of crappy because it was my fault. But I remember the shoot as being fun, so I put kind of a false sense of value sometimes in those images because I'm looking at it from that perspective. Allowing that time to pass, and then you look at it again, you're going to let some of that dribble off, and you're going to be focusing on the compositional elements, some of the mood you were going for, some of the lighting, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And what's most interesting is sometimes it worked and you didn't realize it at the time, and there's something you can get from that and glean from it and expand on. All that being said, I want to show you, I'm going to expand on Edmond's post now, and I'm going to show you another alternative that you can do, particularly if you don't shoot film. And like I said, this is not film versus digital. I consider them both equal. But printing your work is important, no matter whether you're shooting film or you're shooting digital. In fact, let's be honest, most film photographers, including, and I shoot both, but when I shoot film, generally I'm scanning it, it's going to the computer, it's going to go on Flickr, it's going to go on Facebook sometimes, things like that, going to be tweeted, and I tend to, let's face it, it's all digital images at that point, so it doesn't matter what the origin of that image was, but it's what I'm doing with it. So anyway, needless to say, I think one thing that I've done in the past, and I just did this as an experiment, but after I watched Edmond's response, I pulled up some old stuff that I have done, and I have done these books in the past, and these are all print-on-demand books, and I'm going to show you a couple things about them. These are done through a company called Blurb, and I'll put a link down below, and so you can easily get there. And here's the deal: Blurb will do print-on-demand, so you don't have to have a book contract or with a publisher or anything like that. They will publish very professional-looking, quality books that literally you can get one copy of if you want. Blurb have expanded services. They're a wonderful company. Basically, you go to their website, sign up for free, you download the software, and I even think it has automatic layout stuff. So if you just need a quick snapshot of a bunch of images that are put together and bound in a book like this, you can hit the auto thing and it'll go through your Aperture library or whatever it is you're working on. It works with Windows just fine, and you can build a book. And I recommend doing this. This is one I put a little title on. This is called Blink. And I'm sorry, this line is not in the print. It's because I'm filming this and the blinds are back there and the sun is shining, and sorry about that. Normally I try and straighten things out. The cats get into them, and I've noticed that some of you have made comments about the cats who goof around in the background while I'm filming this, and yes, I have 3 of them. So anyway, the Blurb thing is kind of cool. You can get hardbound books like this, or you can get paperbacks. The choice is yours. The other thing that's nice is it does, sorry, I'm having to look through the viewfinder, pretty cool quality images. And what's really neat is if you did want to publish this, you could do, I mean, it's cheap enough. They're not real cheap, but they're under $100. It depends on how many pages you have in the book. But you can get proofs made. And so if you need to make some adjustments, it's kind of nice. So then you can resubmit the book, and let's say you are going to sell it, something like that. But I'm not talking about selling these so much as I'm talking about making one for your own personal reference. And what's interesting is that these that I did at the time, I was just goofing around trying to see what my work would look like in a book form. I had some ideas of maybe I'd give them out as gifts, and I have done that. You can, and they keep your book on file. So if I want to give that book as a gift to somebody, I can easily go buy another copy. Or if you want to sell it, they support e-commerce too. So you can give whatever markup you want, and you can sell your books, which is very cool. Anyway, you'll notice the little Blurb logo is right here. And for an extra fee, you can even have that removed, so nobody ever knew that it was done print on demand. But what's interesting to me is that you know, if you did want to sell them, indeed, you can fully do print on demand, and they'll take care of the e-commerce side and the shipping and all that, so you don't have to do it. You can see some of these. I'm really sorry about the light that's coming in on here, the streak right over here. But anyway, you can do full bleed, which is this page. Sorry, it's like looking into a mirror on here. This page is a full bleed photo. It's a 4x5 photo, so it was not much was cropped off. But this was a period where I was doing a lot of still life photos. The apples are some of my favorites. Stuff that I was doing at the time. I remember it was a summer like it is right now, and it was way too hot to go outside and shoot, so I was working on lighting and trying to get some interesting still life stuff going. And so I did a whole book of this stuff. I did include some of my night images that I'm still very proud of. The cathedral downtown, the Guadalupe Cathedral with the clouds in the background. And so, you know, largely there's some of these that, like, you know, I'm very proud of, and there's some of them that don't work. But like Edmond's point is that I'm revisiting these later. Okay, and here's an example. My dad is an illustrator, has been my entire life, and he's kind of moved into fine art a little bit these days, but does a considerable amount of work. And I was helping him redo his website a couple years ago, and we thought, you know, one of the things particularly with art and illustration for commercial purposes, is that so little is done by hand anymore. And this is how I feel about darkroom stuff, but my dad feels about this too, is that, you know, you see a lot of illustration that's just done in Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop, and nobody draws by hand anymore. So what our idea was to go through, and I shot some still life stuff around his studio, and I actually shot him drawing a little bit too. And that's what these images were from. This one on this side is my father's hands working on a sketch, and the other side is some paintbrushes that were in his studio. We did a one-off shoot. I liked it at the time, and I didn't think much of it. Here's some other hand shots. And now that I go back and look at these, even before I hit the record button here today, one of the things that kind of inspired me is like, okay, well, my father's an artist. I can certainly grab him anytime for a photo shoot. But what about other artists? Because there's something very interesting about not having a face in the image or a portrait in the traditional sense, but see somebody work by hand. And you don't see a lot of people doing that anymore. Anyway, we did use these on his website. And if you really want to see his website, it's getting a little dated already. And that's my fault. I'm the designer on it. But I will put a link in the notes below. It's funny what you can link in a video. I haven't got it to do external links, but I can link to other videos and stuff. So I'll put it in the show notes below. Anyway, that's the Blink book. That was the first one I did. The other thing you need to know is if you're going to do photo books, a couple things. You're going to have to work, particularly with black and white images, because they tend to get a little bit of a purple tint sometimes. And so just be wary of that. Make sure your levels are good. And like I said, you can always do a one-off if it was something you were going to give away or sell or have printed. And you can, you know, make color adjustments and stuff, or black and white adjustments as the case is here. I did a little bit better job in the second book that I did. And this was another one that I was actually, I remember why I titled this. This one has a title called In That Silent Stillness, Photographs by Ted Forbes. Here it is. And this was one that I did a couple of years ago, and actually Blurb were having a competition at the time for photography portfolios. And so I had entered it. I did not do very well. I did not win, obviously. Well, or maybe not obviously, but I did an entire book here. And this one I did a lot differently. I went ahead and put more pages in it. You can see it's fairly thick, so it was a little more expensive to do. But I always, on this one, my layout kept the left side blank. So it drew attention over here. And what's interesting about this is it does in fact begin to make you think about layout and presentation, which is something that sometimes photographers aren't so good at if you haven't had a lot of experience with it. And so this is some of the stuff I've done with Blurb, and I divided this book into sections. I did some still lifes, obviously I did more with it. I was going through some zone system exercises at one point, and one of my favorite images, well, I'll give you another example here. Where's the eggs? I was working on some zone system exercises where literally I was trying to get these real high key images that were just white and a light shade of gray. So these 3 eggs were one of the ones that I was real proud of at the time. But then I went back through here recently and there was some stuff that I was experimenting with paper. This is just an edge of paper, just extreme minimalism. And it's very crude in here, but it's something that I'm seeing as, okay, there's some potential there to work on and expand on a little bit, and maybe that's something that I could do and try to proceed further with. But again, if I hadn't produced this book that I could look back on, or at least kept my contact sheets or prints or something like that, you know, I may not have come to that realization, is all I'm saying. So anyway, lots of stuff, and as I'm thumbing through here, even live on this camera, I'm realizing there's a bunch of stuff that I'm not real wild about. I did a whole a whole series of images when I traveled up to Pennsylvania one summer, and the Bethlehem Steel Mill, which was one of the original Carnegie mills that produced a lot of the steel that was used not only in battleships during wartime, but also things like the Empire State Building. And Bethlehem Steel is a ghost town now. The steel is long gone, but there were some really fun things to shoot. This is one I wish I could go back and redo, but you know, some of the forest has grown up around, and you can see these, you know, these are the steel mill in the background, which is, you know, I compared it at the time. It's almost like a cathedral. There's this solemnity, if I can use a big word for you, you know, a sense of peace that you have in an abandoned environment like that at one time was a producing steel mill. But anyway, these are my Blurb books, and I'm about to do some more actually. And you know, I think it's kind of fun, maybe once a year, you know, do it now. Click on the link below and go check out Blurb. You can basically, you know, go in and pick your best work, throw it in there, and you have a recording of, you know, a snapshot, no pun intended, in time of what you were working on. I am rambling quite a bit, and I just noticed we're at the 17:34 mark, and I'm still going. Anyway, that is Blurb. Special thanks to Edmond for giving me a reply on that. Edmond, I've met. He's a good guy. Keep the comments coming. Keep the emails coming. This has been a lot of fun. I mean, this is something that really didn't surface as much with the regular podcasts that I do, or the regular episodes, the formality of it. But with the vlog, you know, it's kind of a day-to-day thing, and you know, I hope people are enjoying this and tune in. And if you want to talk about photography, this is the place to do it. So anyway, leave a video response if you would like, or you know, leave a comment, or just keep watching the vlog and enjoy it. And I hope to see you tomorrow, and we will do another episode then. Once again, this has been the Art of Photography Vlog Edition, and thank you for watching. We'll catch you guys, I'm getting my remote, catch you guys next time.